Hello, I'm Deborah Sword.
Hi, I'm Tyson Bankert.
Tyson, I have a question for you. Which statement is correct? Everybody deserves a second chance, or I don't give anybody a second chance?
Mm. For me, it's A. I think, yeah. I think I give everyone a second chance.
But I didn't ask which one was you believed in. I asked which one was correct.
Hmm. I think what is correct is still what I believe in, which is the first one.
And let's talk about worldview.
Mm.
There are a lot of people whose worldview is you hurt me once, I don't give you a second chance.
Right.
This three strikes, you're out. No, one strike, you're out.
Hmm.
That's a worldview. And you can see how it would set up a conflict dynamic.
Right.
Because if my worldview is everybody deserves as many chances as they need,
Hmm.
and your worldview is you hurt me once, you burned
Hmm.
me, you
Hmm.
betrayed me,
Hmm.
I don't give second chances, that's a two conflicting
Right.
worldviews.
We will have our values will bring us into conflict.
Values and attitudes and
Hmm.
experiences. So, where does a worldview come from?
Yeah, I think our familial patterns, like how we were raised, what our families said about and how they handled conflict, which, is also oftentimes how our parents have a worldview. And then I think also like whether or not how you were treated or mistreated within peer groups, right? And the kinds of conflict that arose there, whether it was passive or quite aggressive.
Or a
Yeah.
peer group? And if you went to a religious school or a secular school,
Mm-hmm.
we also have different fairy stories that we
Hmm.
believe
Hmm.
in. Which Disney movie did you
Um,
prefer as a child? I was fascinated with comic books as a kid.
hmm.
Well, confession, I collected comic books
Oh,
well
really?
into my
Right.
30s.
Wow.
I had a huge comic book collection, and comics are very good for good and evil,
Hmm. Hmm.
right and wrong,
Hmm.
heroes and villains.
Hmm.
It's very binary, and
Hmm.
there's very few ambiguities.
Right, right.
Well, and some of the
Right.
tortured heroes of later comic books after we got past the classic,
Yes, yes.
then heroes became more tortured
Right.
and villains became more ambiguous.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, it was good and bad.
And I think if those types of stories really resonate with you, or how you come to understand those stories, or how those stories inform heroes and villains, it's so easy to be able to say that person is a villain and I am the hero, in this conflict, right?
And we do.
Hmm.
And so part of our worldview is the judgments we make, and they inform our actions, our
Hmm.
behavior,
Hmm.
what we say to people, and how we enter a conflict. We go into a conflict with a worldview of this is how a conflict should be conducted. And an example, the Marquis of Queensberry rules. When you have a fight, it's got to be fair.
Hmm.
Well, a lot of people say, no, I'm going for the eyeballs.
Mm. Then I think so with all of that in mind, what do we do when we have to think about all that unpacking of where does my conflict originate from? Like, if it were to be laid out in front of us and go, here's how you understand conflict based on all of these different experiences and the micro moments, right? Like the day-to-day things that you do that validate your belief, that origin story. How you see yourself as a hero, really. And what does one do with that? Like, what does that begin to say? Or is it really just part of that competency of being able to say, this is looking outside from an outside perspective, this is why I believe these things. Or this is how I go about conflict.
So part of it is this is how I go about conflict, and part of it is the embedded assumption that if we're in conflicts at a worldview level, I'm right and you're wrong. Because If I believe that my worldview is wrong, it sets up a real internal
hmm
conflict for
hmm
me, the dissonance where I am acting in a particular way
hmm
and my worldview is wrong.
hmm
So the conflict competency here is to recognize when the conflict is at a worldview level
hmm
and then drill down to what's the value, what's the judgment, what's the
hmm
attitude,
hmm
and not how do I make you wrong, but how do we share our differences in a way where we can communicate across the divide
hmm
and understand that it is just that. It's a worldview. And mine is mine, yours is
hmm
yours.
hmm
Of course, I'm going to think mine is right,
hmm
just like you're going to
hmm
think yours is right.
hmm hmm And I think it's really great for people to also, when they take stock of someone else's or even your own, being able to go like we also are able to change, right? If it's not really working for you, what does it mean then to start to pick apart, but also to replace new ways and new opportunities to think about your conflict patterns differently, which is what this is about.
Absolutely. And when we think that a worldview is how we make sense of random acts, I'm very taken with the research where people, according to their political views, were each shown a photograph of a car going into an intersection where there were protesters gathered.
Mm,
And the people at one end of the political spectrum said, well, the protesters had no right being there. It's
hmm
an intersection,
mm,
it's for cars. And the people at another end said, they were protesting, it's legitimate. The car had no business pushing into them.
hmm
Who's right? Depends
hmm
on your politics. Your
Right.
politics depend on your worldview.
hmm
But if we can understand at the deeper level
hmm
that this is how we make sense of random acts and there's a reason for it,
hmm
then we can be more tolerant of
hmm
each other's uh, positions across the divide.
hmm hmm Yeah, there's so much to I think this just goes to speak to just how much this work that you do and also this podcast has reached to be able to say, how do we start to have these more curious conversations about so much of our interpersonal and also, global conflicts that are arising.
It's really interesting to me the kinds of things that we will fight about, but we never fight about worldviews
hmm
because we don't use the word. We don't think about how our positions and our opinions are informed by this whole category of stuff
hmm
that we don't talk about. Let's bring it out into the open. Let's talk about
hmm
it. Let's talk about our values.
hmm Great.
Thank you, Tyson.
Thank you, Deborah. And thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.